We ready to roll? I'm going to call the meeting to order. Actually, I'm going to announce that we called the meeting to order at 4:40?
4:45.
4:45. Immediately went into non-public session, only because we were here for a non-meeting with an attorney over the phone, and that ended early. We decided to go into non-public to finish that discussion and talk about in the minutes. An update on the Chenard lawsuit, an update on the Y Birch property assessment lawsuit, an update or scheduling regarding the CRVI lawsuit, and an update on the Black Mountain Road
We discussed correspondence.
potential correspondence with attorneys.
Yep.
And that was all done in non-public when we just came out of non-public, so we're now back to the
5:02.
public meeting that we called at 4:45, and we're back into public at 5:02, you said?
5:02.
All right. So first order of business is review and approval of the meeting minutes from last week.
And I'm almost done with it. Can you just give me one more?
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
You all set?
Yeah.
Did you have anything on the minutes?
No, I have one thing.
Okay.
On lines 265, the end of that, versus number 1, reduced hours of the county.
Yes.
That is one, this is that will be it, and that's one of the things we talked about, so I don't want to put that down in stone. So one suggestion is reduced hours, or one possibility is reduced hours. So
Can we put, instead of plans, just options?
one option,
No, working on options as follows,
Working
which
on
means these are all options, not,
perfect.
all right.
Okay, good. I just don't want it set in stone, yeah.
All right,
And
and
that's all I have.
can we go back to line 144? And again, I may have said this, but it's not what I meant. On line 144, it says the project cost is $1 million. And then it goes on to say 500 matching funds and 500 town funds. It really should say the project funding is $1 million. We don't know what the cost is.
Got you. Oh, gotcha.
So just change that word to funding. All right, that was the only thing I had.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 5th as amended.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we have non-public. I'll make a motion to accept the non-public meeting minutes as presented.
Was that
Oh,
one?
yeah, that's helpful. Sorry about that.
So I don't need to make notes for you now, you got them all.
Thank you.
For the non-public.
Oh,
You good?
Yep. At the end of that meeting last week, did we come out and make a
We did,
statement?
it's there.
Yep.
I checked.
I just want to read that. Okay, last week, well, no, actually last week, the last meeting, 2 weeks ago, we ended the meeting with a non-public session. One of the things we did during that public session is read a letter that was sent to the Board of Selectmen by a Lincoln homeowner regarding actions taken as a result of the water ban. We did not discuss that letter in public because it talked about town employees, and that's not a matter to be discussed in public. When we came out of that session, we read the following statement, just to put it in the record, but knowing that there wasn't anybody here to read it to, we want to reread the statement that we came out and read last time. And what we said was, we discussed an email received from a Lincoln homeowner and determined that we, the Board of Selectmen, had full authority to enforce the water ban, and this board fully supports the actions of our town employees, period.
Thank you
So,
for that.
just to read that into the record again.
Good call.
And while we're talking about that, we got a follow-up letter from that taxpayer, from that resident, rewriting the letter to not point out the names of any specific town employees, and asked us to reread that letter in public. We have no intention of doing that.
Thank you.
We're not gonna sit here and banter back and forth about what we did and what we didn't. I will just say again, we discussed the email received from a Lincoln homeowner and determined that we had full authority to enforce the water ban, and this board fully supports the actions of our town employees. That's our response to the more recent letter. With that being said, we'll move on to water storage tank assessment discussion.
So, take this off. That, the memo that you have before you was put together after a lengthy meeting between, what I call between myself, Nate Hadaway, Dave Bowden, and Ray Corber to discuss the Weston Sampson Water Report in detail, and the points that are in this memo. And I just want to go back and say, you've heard me say, the water report we got from Weston Sampson was not like any of the other reports we got. In fact, a lot of the info was identical, starting in 1990, okay? But it was an independent look. They have no other business that they're doing in town, except for the town of Lincoln. And basically, it was my opinion, or at least I wanted to solicit from my staff as to how they felt, that we have studied this town enough. We know what the issues are. It's clear, okay? The solutions aren't quite so clear, and they're certainly not inexpensive. So out of the conversation, one of the first things that we did all agree on, and actually Ray Corber said to me first and then to the group, is the town has to establish a level of service that they're willing to give to anyone moving to this town. It's never been done. There's no definitive, this is what we'll give, you're welcome to come. If you want more than that, you got to do it on your own, or whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't mean growth has to stop, but what is the town willing to provide to anyone wanting to do anything, whether it's a private home or business, what is the level? And then it goes on to address what we feel are the next steps to address our current situation with our permits that we're already in the process of handling and how we go out about doing that. Some of it is referred to as low-hanging fruit, like the pressure reducing valve from across the river. It's a possibility that pressure reducing valve is up somewhere near Loon and just doesn't work properly. Two, we may have to put in a whole new one. I'm not sure where that's gone since we talked. And then it progresses to taking Crooked Mountain Road off the pump station, okay, and put it back on the gravity. That's been something that was in place since 1990, not 1990, but certainly 2007. And that's not going to be an easy one. We already are in litigation with CRBI, okay, but I think it's the feeling of my group, your staff, that we've exhibited that they have exceeded the building requirements laid out by the planning board by a lot, simply by the size of buildings and stuff. So we have all the right in the world to ask that those valves be turned and put back, which will free up more than enough water for the town to continue with its current loading. And obviously the third thing that took the biggest amount of time, and Dave chime in here, but the biggest amount of time we talk about is the location of the tank. It was agreed right out of the box that we need another storage tank. And after a lot of talk, Weston and Sampson agreed that the place probably for that tank is at the South Peak location, which would supplement, with some minor changes, supplement the
Village of Loon.
Tank, which would enhance the whole main pressure zone, which would fall into our current the $1 million that we have setting aside for at least the engineering and probably the start of construction on the tank. So those are the highlights.
So that would still leave major deficiencies.
You still got to address Route 3. Okay, at some point that would come next, because there isn't the building pressure over there. We're not seeing it. It's going to come. There's no doubt about it. But right now, so I think what this was meant to do, and you're probably not going to do this tonight, but I think we're of the opinion the Board of Selectmen, select persons, have to set the level of service that this town, that they're going to supply this town. And then the job becomes clear, because once we know the level that we have to do versus what's coming, and until that's done, we're going to keep running in circles, spending money on studies.
They have a recommendation for the definition.
Yep.
And how do you
It's
feel
all
about
there,
that?
okay? And we certainly could have another meeting and have Ray Corber in the room along with the Weston Sampson folks. I resisted the Weston Sampson folks because they were simply the contractor for this, for this study. Be safe to assume that they probably would do an awesome job going forward. But again, depending on the magnitude, we may want to do another RFP for engineering groups to whatever the next steps. A lot of it can be done. Staff already knows. Some of it's going to require legal action, I suspect. The first two steps, or maybe not even the first two, but certainly the second step in this list would need to turn the valves over there and get that water that we already are making into our high pressure zone, which would allow stuff to go forward. As a side note to this, I had conversations with Ray Corber about the surge situation. We've got a piece of 6-inch surge right out here that is determined, it is a choke point, would have to be improved for the Fairfield to go on. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the Fairfield Inn folks have said whatever it takes, they'll fix. So that will take care of itself. Ray Cobra, who's been doing our NHTSA permit for the discharge because of Burndy and stuff for years. With the exception of, we don't currently have a NHTSA or a NHTSA permit. We've been waiting about 7 years, which the whole country has because of backups but EPA and stuff are getting back up to speed. And so the new NHTSA permits are going out, and that would be the only thing that would accelerate our need to expand our.
What's a NHTSA permit?
NHTSA it's an acronym for something. It's something to do with pollutants and metal, all the pollutants and sewage and heavy metals and stuff.
Yeah.
So if that standard changes, then our lagoon system could become antiquated. As far as flow, Ray is thinking we're 10 to 12 years out, given the numbers he's been able to pull off our current flows and stuff. So it isn't as dire on the flow situation. That's Ray's opinion. He said he's been watching them for years and we've been hovering. So obviously if we're prioritizing stuff that, with the exception of our little bit of, that we can get developers to take care of, the game changer would be EPA and the new, what if, and let's face it, that's probably going to center around, a week or two, the national election, depending on which party's in power. There's two different views on national pollution standards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, so I don't think that needs to be brought into your thinking as heavily as right now it's the water. And what level of service do you want to give for what? Ron has asked, and you'll see in here, that as far as the fire department is concerned, he would accept and be excited actually to have the town set as a standard the flow standards that was set in 2007 by the fire underwriters. That's the last official report. We had an update in 2017-18, but that wasn't a complete study. That was just a, what's going on now. But so 2007 standards, and if you want, Ron can certainly recite those to you. And we would pretty much meet that with the addition of a tank, an additional water storage in the high pressure zone, with the exception again of Route 3. But he'd be okay with that. So that's a summary. How you want to proceed is a big question, but we really feel strongly that, and it needs to be well publicized, that so that anyone coming before the planning board, everybody knows this is what the town of Lincoln can offer. Anything above this, with respect to water, but probably in all services, this is what we can offer. And if you still want to come to our town, then you're going to have to pay the freight over and above, because we're all over the place now. But there's no consistency in what we've got.
I don't think this is a new discussion. I think we talked about it before. We have the builder pay for the water. Do we pay for the water? And that's where you're going with that. I would like to know what do other towns do? And it's also based on the amount of water that we do have. I mean, I think we should provide fire water for put out people's homes.
And the 2007 standards would do that. Ron is saying, with the exception of homes above 950 feet, homes or any development. I don't want to say just homes, but any development above 950 feet, the gravity system will not cover. So that would be more of a rural firefighting, correct, Ron?
So that would be a safety.
So that's the way it is today. That wouldn't change. If you wanted to make that available at heights higher than that, it's a much more elaborate system. But you need to set that.
Because I'm not sure what a public-private partnership looks like.
Well, it's happened already in town. I mean, when years ago, I wasn't around, but when there's 2 or 3 developers stepped in and put pools of money in to build sewer system of the wells and stuff, that's a public-private partnership.
Right.
So for instance, if, and I'll just pick, but if the Fairfield wants to go in and this needs to be fixed, we would say, fix it. That's public-private partnership. Now, they might give us the money, we do it, or they would just say, make it part of your contract, Nate will oversee it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do that. So, but that's where we're at. And once we get that, we can get that formal direction.
Thank you, guys. It looks like you put a lot of work into this. Thank you.
Sadly, the town has spent,
Too much in water, we don't want.
well, in the engineering, and in 1990, I forget the name of the company that did a survey of this town.
Providence and
Right.
Lord.
What was it?
Proven and Lober?
No, it was Proven and Lobo.
Okay.
Proven and Lobo hit it bullseye. Everything they brought up in 1990, had it been implemented, we wouldn't be sitting here today. But that's water behind us, that's over the dam, but so what we didn't want, at least I didn't want on my watch is we keep doing this over and over and spending $50,000 every time there's an issue. We know, we got it, we know what's gotta be done, and so Ray come up with this level of service. He's been involved in communities that have done that.
Yeah.
And some are very low. You're welcome to come. But this is all we
Figure out your
can
own
get.
water, figure out your own sewer, and that's
Figure out
it.
your own water,
Right.
figure out your own sewer. And this is all we could give you.
Right.
Um,
With this, I have two discussion points. One is first of all, I agree with making a statement on the level of service. And I think that needs to be agreed on by the board and kind of set the strategy going forward. But in this, there's nothing in the level of service statement that talks about the limits of the pressure zones. Because this just says that within the 3 pressure zones will meet all state and federal drinking water and ISO fire protection recommendations. But do we want to put in there that we'll do that up to 950 feet?
Yeah, I think that is gonna be in all these zones, Ron, jump in here, or Dave. I think the 950 is it in the whole town. In the whole town, so.
And
so
again,
if
is
you
that
get up-
the
if you get up
right
to
number, or is that just the number for the main pressure zone? I mean, how high is Parker's Motel or Glen Press?
They're at 12, I think it's all everywhere,
But the tanks are above them, right?
because above 950-foot elevation, no matter where you are, we can't supply that much.
Right.
You know, where our pressure is limited to the 20 or 30 pounds that you haven't.
Right, but is that the case up at Indian Head?
What's that?
Was that the case at Indian Head?
Yeah,
They're below 950 feet?
yeah, I think we're 950, like, right at Parker's interstate or something.
Oh, yeah, down that low, but the tank up there, base elevation's what, 12 something?
Yeah.
Little
But
tank.
that runs out quick, and it just takes care of
Yeah,
that
that's
short
all
piece, and it's gone. So,
Right, but
That tank up there basically feeds from Woodward's up,
Right.
to the flume.
Yep.
That's about all that feeds. Everything else gets fed from downtown.
okay, I'm just afraid if we say we're not going to supply anything above 950 feet,
No, I would say we're gonna supply water and everything like, to me, that would be the fire flow part of it. As well, that is where you can't
Right.
get your fire flows to whatever they wanna have, so.
so we need
okay.
to clarify that. That's a
Okay.
good point.
Here's my suggestion, that we need to put in a height limit, okay? Because what we're finding out is that our Forest Ridge tank cannot feed houses in South Peak that are above 950 feet,
Right.
okay?
Well, we can feed them.
So,
We're feeding them water. Domestic water, they still have water from that. It's the fire flow part of it that you can't get enough of it because
right,
you would, or the volume isn't there in the tank, so you would draw it down.
Yeah, and I think just to expand what you're saying, Dave, also, is you need to set a threshold for a limit for the potable water also,
Then that could be.
because phase 3, I think it is, the building lots that need to go through site plan by Penny Base Camp, that's well above the 1,000-foot mark.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even be able to supply them with the potable water there.
Right.
Because you're only at 1,058, no, was it
Something.
1,088 overflow elevation.
So rather than get tied up in that, but you're right, clarify elevation level or limits.
For
Elevation
potable
lo-
water and fire.
And fire, and this may be two different numbers.
Right.
And I think that should be done by the zone. Because
Yep.
again, I think
Yeah,
South Peak is gonna be different than Indian Head.
yeah,
You know, if you
And
say
Indian Head
950
is two
feet, that
zones,
means we're
not
not supplying Parker's Motel with water. Or sewer, fire, not sewer.
right.
Good point.
Sewer doesn't need pressure, needs gravity.
And Route 3 is 2 different feeds.
I know,
So that's why,
but one
Yeah.
feed is off of the main pressure zone, so it should be tied in with whatever the main pressure zone is, it should be that in all the main pressure zone.
Yep.
Indian Head zone would be
Yeah.
a different elevation, or perhaps it'd be a different elevation. I'm not an engineer, I'm just saying that those could be different. And I think that should be spelled out in the level of service. The other thing, and this kind of is a question for you, Ron, is we're saying that in the Indian Head pressure zone, we will meet the ISO recommendation for firefighting with our municipal water system. And here's my question with that is, the Indian Head tank right now has sufficient, almost by double, the required volume for what Weston and Sampson is calling equalization storage, okay? For the fire storage,
it's only about half.
it's right, it's missing about half. Okay, and then emergency storage is 0, because once you're below fire, you don't have the emergency. But in that particular zone, wouldn't the augmentation of the water tank water through the use of the Shadow Lake be a sufficient backup where that zone isn't protected entirely on water tanks, but also by augmentation?
Yeah, see, when ISO does their evaluation, did that evaluation, it was on the municipal water system, not any rural firefighting. They didn't break it out. They just took the largest structure and determined what the fire flow need was. It's not saying that we can't supplement the lack of fire flow using Shadow Lake. But for the purpose of that audit, they just used the municipal fire flows that they did through testing. And
Which is what they do. They give the worst case scenario that you couldn't get into the pond. If something happened, your alternate water source, when they go with the municipal, when they
Right.
set rates and stuff. So that's pretty standard. That's how they keep a standard, you know.
Right.
So you're always gonna get, you know, you can still go for extra, but if we're gonna build this to build out, you know, I mean, you got 2 large tracts of land. So this is taking into consideration that, right, we could do that immediately with what's there, but you still got, if the building pressure shifts to Route 3 in 5 years or less, then,
Well, here's my point. If the building pressure shifts to Route 3, okay, I think it would be out of order, out of priority to put weight or priority on increasing, adding to, or putting a second tank in the Indian Head zone, because as you said, that just feeds down to Woodwards. Some of that developable land, Campers World, other properties down there, they're in the main pressure zone. I think, and then where we live, we have low fire protection volume below, 500?
right.
It's one of the lowest in town, is up where we live.
Yeah.
And again, I think that should have more priority than a tank at Indian Head, because again, the Indian Head zone can be augmented with that Shadow Lake fire. I'm not saying we don't offer it, we don't have that as a goal, but I think somewhere in this level of service, we talked that the Indian Head Zone will not meet the 2007 ISO fire protection in the immediate future, but it may be a distant goal.
Right.
And kind of let it be known that we're gonna not focus on that, because we have this big, huge lake of water there we can use to fight fires in that very small area. I mean, that's a tiny area of fire protection.
And I think
And instead, put that on the back burner and focus on the South Peak Loon Village area and the main pressure zone.
That's kind of what came out.
So
of the
in the
meeting.
last page, I think that's
Okay.
kind of what, without that depth of explanation, you'll see that they put the Indian Head as number 4
And
on the priority
and
list.
I think that you have a couple of
Oh, these are
options.
prioritized?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, but see, what's missing from here is an additional tank in the main pressure zone.
which is, when they say Loon Village, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, the tank at South Peak is technically with that pressure, is technically an extension of the Loon Village pressure, which is, right, Dave?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so spotting that tank in South Peak kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It increases storage for the Loon pressure zone, but it also takes care of South Peak, and with the altimeter valves or the pressure reducing valves, a high flow event here on Main Street
Would be fed by them.
would backfill.
2 tanks.
Takes 2 tanks.
So
you-
the
that's
village
the priority.
tank, the South Peak tank would feed the main zone in a fire flow situation.
Correct.
And the reason why they picked that elevation was for, I think it's phase 3 in South Peak, to feed the buildable lots next to uphill from Penny Base Camp. That's why the elevation had to be higher, I believe.
So that is nothing but a plus for the developers over there. It's a huge plus. Whenever that happens, okay? And takes care of our immediate needs. So the, you know, the listing on the last page, that was after bunch, we hashed it around. Indian Head was always number 4 in a priority, but we moved them around, but that's the way it shook out with Weston and Sampson's recommendation, Ray Corber, and obviously Nate and Dave, and Ron had the biggest input on how that, if we're gonna spend money, that's the order we should do it in. Take care of our immediate needs, immediate for the next couple, 3 years, you know.
And to be honest with you, with Shadow Lake, that's probably the easiest alternate water source to get to and move it down Route 3.
Mhm.
What about to Parker's or,
It would take a couple
Like that.
engines to get it up that far, but we would drain
the tank?
the tank first.
Right.
Sorry, Dave. That's 146,000 gallons.
Right,
Oh,
That's
Um,
not a big tank at all, yeah.
no,
But-
it's not.
Going down Route 3 from Indian Head down,
That would be easy, right.
that's gonna
The
be,
concern would be going up to those 2.
and it's doable, you know, with a couple of engines in line to boost it up the hill to get the Parkers, that's, you go about 800 feet, put another engine, you
Mhm.
boost it, and you get the volume.
Parker's and Glen Press, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, you folks probably know better than I do, but the available land, say at the Parker's elevation left to develop is pretty much what's there with improvements or.
Yeah, I mean, the Indian Head has a ton of land,
ton of land.
hundreds of acres.
Yeah,
And
It's just accessibility.
not even.
There's a few challenges there to get out to this backlog, you know, back
So
area.
water-wise, I think that will do it. That would set us on a course of, depending on what you guys lock in as a level of service and well-published, that going forward, we know, have a plan of what we do, and now, then we can move our energies and efforts to public, private, partnerships and grant funding and whatever we need to do.
how about if we take time to think about this?
Yeah.
But get clarification on setting limits as part of
Are
the,
you visualizing like a map or a physical?
I'm thinking that each one of these, where it says, the town of Lincoln will provide sufficient storage capacity to meet industry standards and recommendations for peak demand and the recommendations of the 2007 ISO report for fire protection in the three main pressure zones within the following,
Description or criteria?
within the criteria. And
Okay,
then say, main pressure zone, limit of elevation for water service is X, limit of elevation for fire protection service is Y. Indian Head Zone, Loon Village Tank Zone, and put that right in the level of service, so that when someone comes before the planning board and they say, I'm gonna put in 18 house lots right here, we can say, okay, what pressure zone is that in? Okay, what's the elevation? Okay, well, you can have water but not fire, or you can't have either, or you can have both, because we're just gonna look at the numbers and say, you're above this, below this, whatever, and have that right in the level of service, so there's no fudge, as opposed to, well, it says you're gonna do it in the main pressure zone, we're in the main pressure zone, we're at 1,020 feet, but we're in the main pressure zone. You have to provide water. I want it very
the water,
specific. And don't forget, as the town grows, 10 years from now, 3 different people could sit here and amend that to say, okay, we're gonna get a big mother of a pump and pump it up to 1,020 feet, and we're gonna serve them. They can do that, but right now, we're gonna say,
whatever.
these are the limits, and we're gonna focus on this, and when the next generation gets here and they wanna expand it, if they want to, and the
They can do it.
technology's there, they can do
I
it.
think that's what we're looking for. I think
Yeah.
that's what finally set us in a direction, and if we spend money, it's gonna be
What
for the
did
goal.
you say again?
I just made up numbers.
Okay.
I want the
So we'll
engineers to
get,
put
we'll
in the
get the
numbers, not
engineers
me.
to do that.
Just-
That shouldn't take
Yeah.
long. We'll get them
Yeah,
to set those, given what they're proposing. They should be able to do that. See what you think of it, and then we'll go.
and then
from
we'll
there.
adopt,
Yeah.
we'll discuss
That works
adopting
for
it,
me.
because I think I think the idea is great. Just,
Agreed.
I just wanna make it tight.
Do you see anything else? If we're setting of what the town will provide, if you're setting a level of service, do you just want to concentrate on water? And for now, or do you want to give it a little thought and give it a level of service in the town-wide? In other words, or just start with water?
Let's start with this.
Okay?
Let's start with this.
If this works out, I would suggest maybe we move in that direction too. Garbage.
Sewer.
Sewer. Boom, what are we going, what are we wanting to provide?
But I think this is gonna be well received, because how many times have applicants come before the planning board and then we say to them, well, your building's gonna be this large, you need this much water for fire protection. Now, they're spending a lot of their hard-earned money on engineering, trying to squeak it in there. Well, we're just gonna define this is the level of service at this altitude, and you figure it out. So there's no guesswork. This is what it is. Let them come and make the offer to approve our system, or they'll have to put it on site or whatever, that way it's not guesswork, and then the planning board can actually pay attention to other more critical things associated with the application, because we just established a level of service for water.
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, me too.
awesome.
All right, good discussion. We're moving.
Evening.
Next thing we have is acceptance of unanticipated funds.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, I saw that.
it was like $100 and something
It's
dollars
on there.
that,
It's 15,000.
$15,883.20.
Yeah.
okay. It was different by 100 something from last year or something. It's an
Yeah, it
email.
was different from last year, yeah.
Different
that's
from
right.
last year. Fine. I think that's the one.
Why is that?
It's just the funding change, the formula
I
change.
could read Jonah's email.
I didn't see it. And what is,
I think that's the one.
this shows that our estimated budget, the estimated revenue that we budgeted was 15,746. And the actual amount for 2020 was 15,883. so that it's $137 more than we budgeted for.
Let me read her email.
Yep, go ahead.
We received municipal aid again this year in the amount of $15,883.20.
Mhm.
I had estimated the same amount as we received last year at $15,746, but it came in slightly higher than anticipated. I believe the board needs to accept the additional funds of $137.20
Oh.
as unanticipated funds so
Because
they
we've already
can be
accepted
spent.
the 15, whatever, yeah.
So I will make a motion to accept the additional funds of $137.20 from municipal aid.
For a total of
For a Total
$15,800.
of $15,883.20.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye. Get that?
Oh, yeah,
Do you have this email going before?
That was easy.
thank you. Yes, I have.
Get the easy button.
Yeah.
That was easy.
Any other discussion on the $137? All right. Town managers report?
Okay, tax bills will be going out hopefully by the 1st of November. We know we're putting in the short-term rental registration application and all that, and anything to do with that.
Good.
Is there anything else you want to go out in the mailing, what that we can fit in the envelope? That's the only question I have for tonight, because we're already.
Are we sending out the short-term rental application or a notice that
It's available online.
it's required?
I think we're sending the ordinance and registered application, they'll get a copy, but
What
it's
do you
online.
want?
It's
What do you
online.
want?
Why I wanted
We
to
can do
bring
the
it up.
ordinance with the, the website, whatnot, they can click online and do it. I think just the
Oh, we
ordinance. is what
were
we
gonna
can
send
do.
them an application, I think everybody can get an app whether they're short-term.
I don't think we
renting
need to do that, I don't think we need to
Yeah.
waste that paper.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah,
I think just the ordinance with every tax bill.
I think the ordinance with some sort of a introduction that the town has adopted a new short-term rental ordinance that requires
As
you,
follows,
in big
yeah.
letters, requires you to just register your short-term rental with the town. Below is the ordinance, and you can get an application by going on the website
Or coming
or
to town hall.
calling the town hall.
Do we still have a fine implemented if they're not gonna do it?
Well, it's in the ordinance.
It's in the
Well,
ordinance?
With the ordinance.
With the ordinance, but, it's an honor system, they're send it to every taxable property, and we're hoping if they're short-term rental.
Well, it's not only an
they'll
honor
register.
system, because if there's an issue at a short-term rental that's not registered after this is all noticed
We had a
and
deadline,
implemented, then we can ding them because they're not,
If we run into it,
We
yes.
had-
exactly.
So
exactly.
hopefully there'll be
I
a,
mean, they've given them this grace period so that we could notify everybody with the taxing, with the
'Cause I don't think
billing,
we've had-
so.
we had some, I mistakenly once said we had,
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
Nata.
200.
Yeah,
we had, I don't
Oh,
know,
no, we might be close to 35 now.
Oh, wow, that's better than 14.
14.
Yeah, there's-
We've had a few
I
come in,
think, I think that a lot of them will catch up with this, and then it's gonna be the ones that don't register are gonna get dinged if there's an issue or problem and somebody has to respond, then they're gonna, hey, you got this in your tax bill, here's your fine,
Mhm.
and fill this out.
Well, they get 10 days, well, whatever. it's-
Well, you know what I'm saying, it's.
Okay, we've talked about the water storage. Maple Street paving, the sidewalk paving is gonna start tomorrow.
Oh, good, I was
So-
concerned that that wasn't gonna be done
No,
before
it's-
Halloween, and
You know, it's
kids would be
paving.
tripping all over.
The whole
place.
job will be done, I think, within the next
Couple
week and a half.
days,
But the sidewalk's gonna start tomorrow.
fabulous.
We're upgrading our phone/internet service with the
Oh, good.
coming in. We've gone with, gonna have bundled all of our phones and every internet service and with the Spectrum. That change will be taking place in the next couple of months. And we've saved about $2,500 a year by bundling, so that's a good news.
That's good.
And the other thing I've done today is Freedom Energy Logistics, they were monitoring electric rates for us.
Mhm.
They found a contract for 0.074 cents per kilowatt hour versus New Hampshire Electric Co-op's rates at 0.077. So in electric, well, that's a big deal, so I've agreed we're switching to this Freedom
Sure.
Energy.
It's
Yeah.
freedom energy?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
And I believe you got an email, Sue Chenard has told us that she's tending her resignation as treasurer. And so we're on a search for a treasurer. She'll stay on until we find somebody, but she doesn't have the time for the job.
Mhm.
So,
I didn't get that.
so hopefully anybody listening that's interested, the treasurer is.
So we'll post the notice on our website again and
Facebook and.
Facebook and
Yeah.
tell everybody we know.
Start begging.
It was 0.007.
It's .074 for 36 months. Yeah.
And what
Was
was
she
it
the
before?
only interested person we had last
0.077.
time?
Yeah.
That's a difference.
Mm.
It was,
I have
it was
somebody in
still cheaper
mind,
than,
but
it's still
Reach out.
Eversource, is that right? See if they're
they
interested.
would be great.
Because you'd be
Fantastic.
filling
I just
out
don't know
the
who wants to
expired
do it,
term
so.
for 2 years, right? That's how that works. Wouldn't be till this March, this coming March.
No, it's till, they'd be up for reelection in this March.
This March, so just
Right, you
between
can
now.
only fill in till the next town election.
Right.
And then they would be running for a 1-year term, right? So we,
Julie was on 3 years, so they would be appointed through March, and then in March, they would run for 2
A
years.
1-year term, because it would be the remainder of Julie's.
Right,
contract.
which is 2 years. She just ran last election.
she did, okay, so there's 2 years left.
Okay.
So it
gotcha,
should run for a
gotcha,
2-year
okay,
term in
sorry,
March.
I
Or
misread
she
that.
or
I was
somebody,
thinking
whoever
it was
gets it.
2-year, not a 3-year, but yeah, I get you,
Okay.
okay, gotcha.
All right,
That's it. That's all I have.
Riverfront Park,
They might even be in there this week doing some drilling, test drills.
I
That's-
thought they were done with that.
No, there's gonna be a lot of drilling.
Ah.
I know.
no, what they had done was the parking area.
Right.
And then
Now we still have to go and do 10-foot.
we wanted to determine that it's safe to build. We didn't want to build a parking lot without knowing that down below where we've got to put the skateboard park and the path.
Yeah.
And we decided we're gonna drill there and just make sure that's safe
getting the
and then go
sign-offs.
forward with that.
My
And then,
concern is that we're spending all of the money we have to build on all of this other stuff. And it's But it's-
Unfortunately, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
It's
Tammy, I know,
BS
I
though,
hear you.
it's total BS. I mean, we've got $400,000, which is nothing, to go towards this park. And you know what, I'm gonna give John a call. I would like to know what we've spent on
We can get that.
Riverfront Park to date, on all of it. The planning, the engineering, the design.
And you're gonna spend a lot more. I'm not pulling any punches. I don't wanna be facetious. It's turning into a challenging site, but it'll work out. But it's not gonna be, you're not gonna build it for $400,000.
Well, no, we knew that. We knew that, but we
So-
at least thought we'd get a parking lot in the road in there for $400,000, and now I don't even think that's gonna be possible
I hear you.
with whatever's left. Well, it depends on what's underneath the soil too.
It absolutely does. Yeah.
all right, let's get an update on what the
I'm sorry, I
expenses
mean, I know
are.
it's not your fault or anybody's, it's
No,
just
no,
frustrating.
It is
Really,
frustrating.
really frustrating.
I got it.
What about, the water committee and water meters? Have you, OJ, been able to reach out and let them know that, last time we spoke, you were gonna reach out, and let them know that that's
Level of service, folks.
a task that they were asked to do was to figure out and whether, A, we needed water meters, which they have figured that out. We have had people come in and say that we've paid money to study things, to say, you
I
need
think-
water meters, folks.
It
So-
wasn't in this Western Sampson report because it wasn't part of the thing, but I
Right.
believe I can speak for the water department and myself. Water meters need to go in.
Absolutely.
All right,
That's-
We have already determined that.
we-
But
David was
last
saying,
year, we didn't
weren't-
have
weren't
enough
they gonna
information.
Get back to them
Rep-
and find out about doing some different, how
Yeah.
it was gonna affect different things or different rates or something like
Ralph,
that.
tell us, our question with them was if we had a rate that incorporated a set allotment of gallonage for each thing and then a variable rate on that. They've not responded. Is that correct?
To that last question, I don't think so. They said that you should not get rid of your current impact fees.
Yeah, I know that.
That's nothing to do with it, but still, that would stay. And then, I don't believe that, I don't know if they,
Can you rattle that cage one more time? Tell them that the water committee's gonna meet, that was the question we had at the meeting, 2 meetings ago.
So how
And-
that was, it was to,
Rephrase the question for him.
that the water committee has looked at the proposed rates and wanted to consider a rate structure that included a set allotment per meter, or per household, included in the rate structure, and then a variable rate on top of that.
If you go over your allotted amount, I see what you're saying,
Right.
similar to what Woodstock does.
Now, was that just for residents or for commercial too?
Everyone.
Everyone?
Thank you. And have we had any more
Thank you.
interest in a building committee?
I'm still.
No.
John Hettinger said he would sit,
Fantastic.
he said he would, but he's the only one.
Who was the other one, Debbie Salino,
Yeah.
right?
She hasn't written a letter yet.
She hasn't got anything yet?
She has not written a letter yet.
Can you tell by email and see if she's still here? Great.
We have John said he'd be very interested.
He would be very, very helpful.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be a huge committee, but I'd like to see one or two more.
Yeah, let's just get two more
Absolutely.
people on
Can't really
there.
call it a committee with one person.
Yeah, I know.
Right, right.
It's a calm.
I don't know. You know, anybody?
I've got someone in mind and I'll reach out.
All right.
That was all I had.
All right.
I had,
Do you have something?
no, the building committee you just talked about. The easement deed, were we gonna talk about that?
Yeah, let's
So
talk about
that's where
that.
we are on the easement deed. I've had exchanges with Judy today. So we found the easement at Conklin's office. It went to the school board. It appears that it was, according to Conklin, it was a done deal. It was sent back in 2007 to the school to be signed and recorded. And then it fell off the radar. Apparently there was a change in management suddenly down there in
That was when
2007.
Cosgrove left, yeah. So
And,
we're just gonna have a look.
And so it fell off. So it's back on the table. I let Judy know that, so their attorney, after seeing this open document, said, well, it's got to go to town meeting. And I said to Judy Judy, it would have already had to go to town meeting. It's
District
supposedly
meeting, you mean?
School district
school district meeting.
Yeah.
It
It
should have
went.
done in
It should have
2007. It should be all done. So she looked in the minutes of the 2, 6, 7, and 8 and couldn't find it in the minutes. However, I did find minutes of a Board of Selectmen and school board meeting where they talk about that the deed was issued to the town for the property. So now it's in the attorney's hands.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's a
They just
deed.
did some investigating.
So my concern is that the town is, like I expressed to Judy, to express to the school board, and that over the years, the town spent a lot of money in good faith. We've extended a water line, we've paved a turnaround, and we would have some serious concerns about any driveways into that hammerhead because it's not allowed. In fact, it's an emergency turnaround and driveways aren't permitted. So, and I know there's they're getting pressure from a private
Right.
citizen to access a driveway
Right.
in there. And Nate would have serious reservations about that being allowed. And if it's our easement, we wouldn't allow it.
Right.
So that's where we're at as of today.
So we're just waiting for the school's attorney to
School's got to,
investigate.
I guess, I haven't got our attorneys involved yet. I just wanted to let them
Yeah,
chase down
yeah.
before we start spending money, but I think these will make some serious pushback because we've maintained it
Well, we
for.
may not have to.
I see
think
two
that makes
different
sense.
issues
Yeah.
here,
Mhm.
and I'd like to keep them separate. One is that we, the town, and they, the school district, thought we had a signed agreement for this, and we've been talking about where is the signed agreement, and everybody thinks there's a signed agreement, but it just was never signed. So I don't see a big deal about getting this signed. I don't think the school is gonna renege on it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know.
I didn't mean to say that. I
Yeah,
just said that
but-
they're being advised, it's still gonna go back for a vote, and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know why you'd
Well,
have to go back for a vote.
I mean, we've invested in the road, it's there, you know, I guess I don't see a big deal, but it'd be nice to get this done and signed. If they need to go to
Because
a
there's a
school
nice set of
district
plans for the
meeting,
Mylar.
yeah, they need to go to a
Should've
school
been
district
recorded.
meeting,
Then
they
they need
do
to
that.
do it, yeah.
I think the separate issue is, this whole thing started because we had an abutter to the Hammerhead come into us and request a permission to put the driveway out of their back lot onto this easement. And I think our response was that we couldn't do that because this was really just an easement the town has on school property.
Right.
Okay? I was not aware that this couldn't be done because of the fact that it was a hammerhead. And is this correct? You just said that it's a hammerhead, so it's just for emergency
and
vehicles.
public, putting snow, turning around trucks.
I wasn't aware of that either.
I wasn't-
Cul-de-sac can be designed so that you can have,
Driveways.
because they're wide enough, they have dimensions. This is just a back up and
Well, they
leave.
used it as a cul-de-sac anyway, they drive in the lawn.
Well, they drive along.
So they go around, I tried to plant grass there for 2 summers in a row and I
Yeah,
didn't.
they drive it, they use it.
All
but
right,
it's designed as a
so
hammer.
we've sent her to the school district to get their permission, and now it looks like we're trying to tell the school district, don't give her permission. I think ultimately, we have rights to that easement, we can either, restrict or grant that with the school board, but if we're not gonna grant it, let's end this whole process and let the taxpayer know that based on advice, from where Public
Yeah.
Works and Fire, that is solely intended to be used as an emergency turnaround. It is just a hammerhead and not a cul-de-sac, and that we won't be issuing any driveway permits. And, I mean, if I were that taxpayer, I'd wanna know that now and not go through this whole process and go to 6 more meetings with the school board to find out the town's gonna say no matter what they
Yeah.
say.
What RSA is that? It's an RSA.
I didn't get it. I'm just
We should
trying to figure out where the
probably have
paperwork is.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That was all I
Well,
was concentrating on
The
today.
paperwork is right here, it's unsigned, and we'll get that done.
And
In
then-
the
that's
meantime,
one-
what are we gonna
Yeah.
do
Well, I
to,
guess, for 13 years, everybody, including the school board, has acquiesced that it's a town thing, so I think we'd be all right. I'll run it by legal to make sure, and we'll just do that. We'll notify the homeowner that as far
And-
as
and if you
the town's concerned, it's an easement granted to us, and it's a hammerhead, and we'll work up,
You know.
and just say, the town has no interest in having that access to the driveway access. Somehow, whatever the proper word
I
is.
don't care one way or another, but if they have to use it, they have to use it.
wait, say that again?
I said, it doesn't matter to me if she had a driveway or not, quite honestly. I was just hoping she'd continue that and get out the back way.
Go to her driveway?
Run it right through.
In and out?
It's just so steep.
Again, I was kind of thinking that too, that I didn't see a big,
Well, this is
big
the thing,
deal.
I only
But-
briefly,
If-
says, I don't want any can't put driveway in our hammerhead, and I said, okay, well, I just took it.
Okay,
Let me do some more
can
investigation.
you investigate that
I'll
with
do it
with
deeper.
Nate, with Ron, with
Yeah.
a documentation, if there is an RSA or a ruling or
I'll dig in deeper.
protocol, whatever, fire code, I don't know, but can we figure that out and either let her know we cannot do this no matter what, if that's the case. All right.
Thank you.
We have water restrictions still in
They are in
place.
the drought, we're still in a moderate drought. in the
How
state.
are we doing?
Well, like you said, we're still in the moderate drought, but
They haven't lifted it, so
We've got
Nate,
4 inches of rain in the last week and a half probably, so.
And it looks like we're gonna get more this week.
Right.
All right, is this something we probably should put on the agenda to revisit next week, a week from Monday?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, my guess
You
is-
could take it off now, but if we don't get any rain or whatever, and it's still, then you
Let's
might
wait
have
till
to put
next
it back
week.
on.
Let's
I
wait
would
till
rather-
next
I
week.
would rather-
I'd rather wait
wait
either.
another
Take it
week.
off,
But let's-
Put it back on. Or leave it
And
on.
they can, we can notify, if the state says we're good, then we can come off anytime. I guess we could just, wouldn't have to call a special meeting. Probably.
No, but and you're right, you may want to say, okay, next week, we'll look at it next week again, or something like that. I don't know, that's up to you.
Probably go week to
however you
week.
wanna-
Let's do that.
Look at
Let's,
it next Monday.
Next Monday, we'll take a look at this, and if we can get a recommendation from the Public Works.
Yeah.
Regarding that,
Whatever
would be
you
great.
decide. You're the boss on that job. I don't know.
All right, and you said that Ray was doing some calculations on sewer capacity.
He did that, he'd been doing, he does it, he pulls numbers as part of when he's reviewing the Burndy discharge permit
Okay.
annually. And he just said, you know, in my opinion, so it wasn't like he was doing it for pay, he says
Do we have any plans to do something more definitive? If someone came to the planning board right now and said, right over there, they're gonna tear down buildings and build a 100-room hotel, can I do that? Do I have the sewer, does the town have the sewer capacity? We don't know the answer to that.
we don't.
I would,
You kind of got that going on now with 3, but another one, yeah.
Well, I mean.
And could that happen? Yeah.
It,
no, for a love of money.
Well,
There
it's
should be an
even
ordinance against building.
studying how much can you send down the pipes. Now you gotta figure out what your permitting capacity is.
right,
Gotta look at-
right,
figure out
and
where you're going.
I guess I think it's fair to ask a developer to do the sewer study as how they're gonna get the sewer to our treatment plant. As the Fairfield Inn did, and we found is there's a
6-inch.
6-inch that they can't put enough stuff through. And that's, they discovered that. But should we know what the end result is? I mean, would we want someone to come in and have a project like that and go before the planning board, tie up the planning board, all this approval process, get into,
I
this,
can't
and
quote
only to
you.
find out that, oh, well, you can't put any sewer in our sewer treatment plant?
I think what Ray was quoting is there's a discharge capacity of our existing ponds, which is
X.
1.234 million gallons a day.
Right.
We're running between 600 and 900,000 gallons a day. So what he's saying is, he got a lot of capacity left.
We heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think he was doing it in that general terms.
Okay,
If you want to auger down to more, which would take this town well into with the exception of the quality of water being discharged into a Class B river, which that is, those standards could be changing. And the change would be that those ponds couldn't possibly give you that quality of water.
and
That
I'm
would
not
be-
looking for the hypothetical.
Right.
I'm looking for the current, right now,
I think that's
based
what
on
he's saying, but I
today's
will
rules
clarify.
and today's ponds,
Are you thinking about
Well-
tearing down some houses and building something?
no, I'm just thinking that every time something comes before the planning board, the question comes up, what's the sewer capacity? The answer is, I don't know. And then we start this whole theoretical discussion. Well, shouldn't we know? Well, who should we make the developers do it? Wouldn't it be better if the town knew this?
Well, it sounds like we have enough left and you have to figure out how much sewer they're gonna use
Let
when
me
they build.
auger again,
Yeah,
auger deeper,
Yeah.
ask
Ask Ray.
more pointed questions.
Right, because
Yeah.
like, does his number take into consideration the vested issue?
Yeah.
And is that hard to calculate? Okay, if there's X number of units, X average number of bedrooms.
Yeah.
X number of gallons, add that in, is there anything left? I'm not sure we need a $50,000 study,
Oh,
but can we at least get a ballpark, like,
Well, again, it would go
where
to-
are we on the
lead you-
scale
that-
of?
That conversation that will lead you to the next, this is what we can supply to speak. That's what it would lead to.
Exactly,
Okay, let me auger down some more on that.
okay, Ron,
And that number, without reading meters, will give you what you have left and could be a good talking point for putting in water meters and water consumption, which could extend what you have left as far as time and build up.
That's a good point. I mean, you know, what we spend in water meters won't only measure the water, but it might, by conservation, extend the life of
It
will.
of that pond, of that lagoon.
Then that,
Absolutely.
10, 15 years.
that will allow development to keep going forward with the impact fees to build up that reserve to do that project that's gonna be needed. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
That was all I had. Anything else from the board?
No.
All right,
Thank you.
open up for public participation.
Anything about Forest Ridge, have you heard any news at all?
Still waiting on bonds.
So waiting on bonds.
He still hasn't bonded that?
He can't get bonded by a bonding company. So the latest talks as of Friday and today is, look, last week, Ron and I actually had a conversation with Rick Elliott, and he wanted to bring in cash. $83,590,000 in Ben Franklin's. And I said, no. So we do with
Good answer.
$89,000. Well, we just can't, there's accounting principle. So I've been in talking with our town attorney. He said we could accept a certified bank check. In other words, he can take his cash to a bank, come in with a certified bank check, and I think one of his lenders was working with, had inquired of Ron, I think, how we'd make that work. That was Friday. As of today, we saw no bank check, but we do have a process that we could take a bank check and hold it as funds that could be carried along for however many years that we couldn't spend, but it would be an in-house bond. It isn't the way to do it, but he can't get one.
It's an in-house, like an escrow account.
It is, but it can't be an escrow because money can't be his. It has to sit here as a check with the legal paperwork that check can never be returned to him until there's a sign off on the project. So that's the difference. Escrow, if his money's left in an escrow, the law says it's got to go back to the person that put it in escrow. So this is what the attorneys are telling me. So there would be some sort of document written up. It's a lot more complicated than an insurance company telling you he's bonded.
If that's what it needs to take to get done.
So we're working on that, but he's obviously run into, he's not bondable. So.
Okay.
So
Does
I got to
anyone
report.
online have any questions?
Did you have anything else?
If a guy can't get bonded, I don't see how you could play with him much more. I mean, if he can't come up with bond and then you're gonna take this cash instead of that, I think that's a bad way to go. I mean,
And he hasn't.
what if he bellies up? I mean, it looks like he's getting ready to belly up.
Well, that would be what a bond would be for, and then in this case, what
Yeah, you
a
can't
deposit or
You can't
escrow.
use that money till the job is done or what happens.
Or he goes belly up, would do it, Roger. I mean, that would,
That money is-
The performance bond, the first bond's the performance bond, that's for building the
The-
ponds.
Right,
If he doesn't complete it,
we can use that
we
money.
use that money to either complete it or do the work.
Mhm.
But the surety is for the maintenance, right?
yeah.
Right,
And that's until it's annexed into the main association, but that's in litigation, so that may be a while.
See, the sub-association, the Pines,
Right.
the main, and they're both in litigation
Over that very issue.
over that very issue.
But when they was talking before on the screen there with the lawyer, they had to have 3 months to get this work done. And he was up to start on getting that so we could get started. Well, now we get the okay, and we're already 2 months into it, you know, and that ain't something that can be done in the winter.
No, I believe he said once he got the permission and permits, that it would take him 2 weeks to do the job. I know,
2 weeks?
I think it was 2 weeks that he was gonna,
He's doing it all in-house.
right, but he said he could do it.
Yeah.
That the bonding and the permits with a
Challenge.
slowdown.
I don't know if he's got all his permits yet, does he?
Can't see the money.
So he's,
Wait, does he need any,
DES?
state DES permits, or is that all?
I'd have to check on that, I don't know.
Because DES approved this,
They
that's,
approved.
that's why the
they
planning
approved
board-
as amended AOT for that project, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's basically just the bond and getting the work done,
yeah,
I believe.
the bond has to be in here, so we're not gonna let him start until there's money in here.
we're gonna catch 22. Before he starts, we want a bond. If he can't get the bond, we'll try to work with him to get some sort of guarantee. Or we could just say, well, we don't need the bond, go out and start it, but there's a big risk to that. It would get it done quicker, or would get it started quicker, but I'm not sure we want to take that risk.
It's a
You
mess.
say he's in-house, he's gonna do it in-house?
With his own dirt,
Equipment.
I call them dirt guys.
Yeah, but is there gonna be somebody there, an engineer looking
Yep.
at it? I mean,
Ray Corver is gonna review.
Well, he's not gonna be there every day.
no,
No.
how about, what did he get this from Horizon?
Verizon's has already done some surveying, you've seen the grade stakes
Yeah,
of it.
but shouldn't they, the town, couldn't you request that he has something from Horizon on that
Yep,
project?
he's gonna have it as-built stamped by Horizon's on that.
So Horizons has to, basically by stamping that, guarantee that
It's gonna work.
that it's built the way it was designed.
Yep.
Not that it's gonna work, but that
Of
it's
course,
built the way it's
Florida law
designed.
is approved by
Planning board.
Hampshire DES,
Oh, okay.
yep, the new design. Yep. And Ray Corver will oversee certain steps that, you know, in the town's interest that it's being done as designed.
Which in the past has resulted in stoppage of work and big rhubarbs in between Ray and the engineers, and Ray's looking out for us, and yeah. So hopefully it goes smoothly, but nothing's been done, and Roger's right, it's gonna be too late here shortly. We don't have much time left.
Mhm.
You all know that,
Yeah,
once the frost starts.
Oh, we've been in the drought, so there hasn't been too many issues.
Yeah, I know, but we'd like to get it done before
Yeah.
springtime is typically
Spring runoff.
when that's gonna be important to have.
Because they're pumping it right now. It's the only way they keep it from overflowing or doing whatever.
But the water they're pumping out of this,
One can imagine.
yeah. I
Well,
mean,
they-
it seems
yeah.
though that the state would be, something given a tooth to the state, because they're pumping it mud. Is that a generator on the bank, or is that a?
That's a generator running that sump pump, and it's pumping up into the bag, into the silt bags.
Mickey Mouse outfit. Gee,
Nice.
hey, I mean, something that you're dealing with.
Well, he's not plugging into the condo that's closest.
No, I mean, no, but I mean, what he's putting into the river, I mean.
so he has to get going quickly. Is there a deadline or is there something that we need? to-
November 30th.
Deadline is he's gotta have,
November 30 is the deadline.
November 30?
after November 30, he can't do
That's-
anything.
that's
till
the-
spring.
Approval,
And then all starts over, you come back in.
then he comes back in and,
Does he have to keep the pump in there then?
Won't pump it in the winter.
That's between him and the property owners up there, but I imagine they're gonna sue him again. Yeah. I don't know that, I
You
shouldn't
don't
even say that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even have said that.
all right.
Anyone online, and do we
Oh.
know who Nate is for the
I think
minutes?
it's our Nate.
That's our Nate?
Is that Nate Hadaway?
Yes, it is Nate Hadaway.
Nate was gonna listen in to,
Okay,
hey Nate,
Yes, I'm here.
okay.
I think we're all set, I appreciate you signing on, bud.
All right.
Okay,
Thank-
I'll talk
Thanks,
to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Nate.
Anything from anyone else online?
hope that really works for you.
I don't either.
All right.
All
We
right,
don't have any non-public because we did that.
we already did non-public.
Is there anything in the red folder?
Yes. Oh, I want to know about it's 136 Main Street. It's called the Bitchin' Kitchen Unapologetic Comfort Food. It's a
Mhm.
vendor.
That was the food truck. They were here last weekend.
Oh, I didn't know so.
The food was amazing.
Where is that? Where? are they?
It was right next to, right here, right in this,
Right here?
this grass area right
Each
there.
building.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Somebody, yeah, in the staff went down and
The
I didn't
PD,
get
a bunch
anything.
of the PD went over and got stuff
Yeah.
and I got
I
stuff.
didn't, but the girls
the
did.
girls did, yeah.
I got stuff.
Yes,
for
it
the
was
kids and I
good.
It
Yeah.
was fantastic.
It's from Franconia.
That was really good.
Franconia, yes, that's what she said. It says.
Did you see the one down below that, on the weekend of supposed to have been art fair, there was one down on the mill property there, they had it all set up in there.
No,
On the what property?
On the mill, the old mill, the
Yeah,
big mill,
yeah.
by the first building there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
She's right in that parking lot down there, and she was all, she was only about 3 hours, I guess. I didn't see nobody stopping there, but I don't
That
think
that
they
one,
up.
that one didn't have a permit.
I didn't
I was
even
just
see
gonna
it.
say.
I don't know if she had a permit or what, but I mean, she just.
Huh.
did it long.
No,
Did you
the
see it,
kitchen
Rob?
kitchen was fantastic. but-
no.
So she was on the other side of the rotary.
Is that
But
just
on
Bill's?
this- Right across from,
Looks
right
like
across the ball, right across from the clinic, right across the big, on that side of the driveway.
Oh, I didn't see it.
And attorneys.
And the other one up on the ski, right, the snowboard shop, they had their stuff out in the pocket, out in the road, you see that one?
I saw one, somebody there one
We did that
time.
last year too.
Well, they had two parking spaces, signs out and all kinds of skis up there.
Next to the Mexican restaurant.
Uh-huh. Did we get a letter sent back to Judith McGann regarding the funding formula that we agree we should wait a year?
I think you emailed
I
her.
emailed her.
That was 2 weeks
You did,
ago.
okay. So
But
that
I'm
was
gonna
done.
double check, but I believe I
That was
emailed
done, okay.
Jimmy. I think I
Yeah,
did.
Cool, yeah,
It'd be in the
okay.
school year of 2021,
Whatever.
which we are now. We're in that school year, so she's thinking annual year, January after next year.
Oh,
20.
can I read this too into the minutes? Can I? I don't know if I
I
can.
don't know, what is it?
It's the letter from Ron to.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Regarding-
I have copies.
I have it here. Ron, Chief Beard emailed to, well, the town manager and the police chief. So good morning, I want to share with you the outstanding display of compassion and professionalism that should be recognized. Last week, I was asked to assist Sergeant DeLuca and Officer Taylor in my capacity as a town health officer to evaluate the living conditions of a condo unit. I arrived on scene and stayed in my vehicle until asked to do my evaluation. During that time, I was positioned to view how the situation was being handled. After approximately 10 to 15 minutes, they had walked the occupant down to the cruiser. Officer Taylor came over to me and brought me up to speed on the situation we were dealing with. I then left my vehicle, positioned myself about 10 feet away from the driver's side of the cruiser and waited for them to secure the subject. During this time, I was able to hear with my own ears and view with my own eyes an outstanding display of compassion and respect to a person in police custody. Sergeant DeLuca had complete control of this possible volatile situation, and Officer Taylor was extremely compassionate in handling the required police protocols and placing the subject in police custody. Considering the details I was furnished on this subject that was taken into custody, I'm truly amazed at how well this went. And in my opinion, this is an example of the truly professional and compassionate staff that the police department has, and is a true testament to the quality of leadership the town of Lincoln has in place in that department. That was an awesome letter.
It was. Ron.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read it, it was very good.
And I agree, with, Police Chief Morris, and down there, our department is
And that went me to their file.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Oh, I have a quick question.
every single one of them.
That was, thank you for reading it. Solid waste, are they doing the same thing? We having guests go down there? I haven't been there in so long. Guests go down at, the permits aren't being handed out. I guess that would be the question. Are permits being handed out
Yeah,
from the town halls?
permits, I think the
Okay.
permit system's working well.
Oh, good, that's what I was wondering.
And we're, publicly, I think everybody probably knows, but Jimmy has accepted a position in town Plymouth.
I heard rumor, I thought it was Camp or
And
something.
so we're moving to fill his position. We'll be advertising that. He's leaving, I think his last day is next Monday. And he's gonna, Plymouth is a foreman in their waste, solid waste facility.
Yeah, I saw Jimmy over the weekend at the solid waste facility and congratulated him on his new position and thanked him for his years of service here. I mean, I think in any fields, you know, people are looking to move up and it's a bigger,
It's a little bit bigger place.
busier,
Yep.
and, you know, we'll miss him. I think
So-
he's done us a great job and
Everybody
wish
should
him the
look,
best.
we'll be having an advertisement for a position that we advertise, so anybody that's listening or hears this, that knows someone.
Can you see how much it pays?
Now, we have
We'll be posting pay rate, we'll be posting pay rate.
another part-timer, another full-timer and a part-timer,
No, we have one full-time and one part-time.
one part-time. Will that part-time position be moving to full-time?
We're not talking about that in public.
Right.
No, I'm just wondering, you said you're gonna be
No,
putting out an
the current
ad for,
the current part-timers have no interest in the full-time.
okay, I was wondering if we were hiring a full-time or a part-time position, that was what I was getting at.
We'll be hiring a full-time position.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is the early